how did this whole thing start? Like, how did you just start hearing this like tapping just in general, just kind of like coming from your room?
Let me grab my phone so I don't have video.
Fine.
So I usually go to bed at like 11 or 11:30 after I do my homework and play on my computer a little bit.
Okay.
And I had everything turned off and I was just laying there and I heard like I have my fan and my AC all the way on, so I thought it was like plastic or something on my desk because it was just singular tapping like every 1 or 30 seconds.
Okay.
It was just like one or like a tap or a tap tap.
Okay.
And out of boredom, I decided I just kind of tapped back at it. And after I tapped at it, it was quiet for like a minute. Then it went boom, 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 boom.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like laying up and I was half awake and I like jerked awake and I looked over like what in the, so I copied that. I copied the same beat and then it changed rhythm again. So it went on for about an hour of just constant changing beat to each other in response. And I was texting one of my friends, and that's about when I posted on the Reddit for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was texting one of my friends. They were like asking a question. So I was like, all right. And I asked it, do you understand me? 1 tap for no and 2 taps for yes. And about like 30 seconds to a minute later, just a faint tap, tap. And so I was like, all right.
So really this thing was acting like almost like a Ouija board in a way, like where you would, instead of saying, you know, hey, move this object to a yes or a no, or move it to, you know, some letter in the alphabet, you were just asking it a question as of a yes or no and using the tap as a response. And it clearly tapped twice in order to say, yes, it understood you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And at that point, it was using some pretty advanced beats, and personally, I'm a musician, so I just went ahead and asked it, hey, did you play an instrument, or you were a musician, or what? And like instantly, tap, tap.
Wow. Okay, that's cool.
Like,
so this entity then, did you start to really kind of get involved into asking it like who it was and why it was there?
I tried asking like more personal questions. Like I tried figuring out the age frame of it. I tried figuring out if it's a male or a female, and it just completely went silent on those questions.
Really?
Which was really odd, because up until that point where I started asking about it personally, it was really responsive.
Okay. So in other words, it was really responsive when you're just asking generalized questions and just talking to it, essentially.
Yeah.
But as soon as you started digging deeper into who it was, it's just shut up, essentially.
Yeah, and after I just kind of gave up, and it didn't actually start tapping again until like 20 minutes later after that.
No
So
way.
I just decided it's probably not a good idea to keep going with it.
Interesting. Okay, so did this all happen just in like one night, or did it happen, or has this been going on? Has this continued?
This is with the tapping, as of my knowledge, this is the very first phenomena, but it may have been because this is the first time I actually acknowledged it. But it is kind of odd because it's not the first time that something odd has happened in my house.
Really?
Like, one morning about 2 months before, I don't know what month that is. I'm bad with months, but about 2 months before I was brushing my teeth. I was getting ready for school. I just got out of the shower. I was getting ready for the morning. I had my door open, and my Doberman was just sitting there staring at me. He was whining, trying to get attention. And then in the middle of that whining, I heard, "Hey, Dylan."
Really?
And like my head jerked over, and I just joked it off as, "Hey, my dog's a Wendigo."
Right. That's funny.
But now that happened, I know it's fully intelligent and it can interact, and I think there's a better off chance that I actually heard a phenomena in that morning.
Wow. So you actually think that you heard it?
Yes. It was like kind of, it was clear, but kind of raspy at the same time. Like it didn't sound fully auditory. It was just like a voice.
Huh. But this is, okay, so when did the tapping start?
About 11:35.
When, what
At
day?
night.
Recently?
Yeah, like when I posted on Reddit, it was like 2 days ago.
Yeah. And that was the actual time.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So if we go back, 2 months ago, then that was back in February then. So
Yeah.
back in February is kind of when you really is when you first like heard that someone say your name, Dylan. And then that would be scary in of its own to hear your name said like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did it sound like somebody actually talking? Like, a lot of times people have this misconception. So they usually think, well, you heard it in your head or something happened. They always try to make something up. They don't understand until they actually go through this process, until they've actually been in a situation like this. It's like actually hearing somebody talk to you, correct? Like you really thought somebody was in your room saying your name.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that this is really hard for sometimes some people like this, like they just don't get it. But it's almost like somebody right there, an invisible person saying your name, you can audibly hear it. And then that would freak me out, dude. That would like totally freak me out. How did you feel after you heard that? I mean, is this something that you've come to expect in your house because your house has like an energy to it? Or is this something that is kind of new to you?
Not yes and no. I was not expecting it in this household, but it didn't really it didn't shock me. It didn't scare me because I have a lot of history with paranormal stuff.
Okay.
Dating back from when I was like 10. So I kind of heard it. And instead of fear, I meant it with just absolute fascination.
Sure.
Then in my mind, I was just kind of like, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I'm just going to guess that I was half awake. It might have been my dog whining, and that's what I heard. And it just sounded a lot more human.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just like botched it off as it could have just been anything because I honestly wasn't sure. And I'd say it didn't scare me. It was more shock, confusion, and like kind of fascination because I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool."
Right. Yeah. To me, it would be really fascinating. I would be intrigued. I would want to communicate a little bit more. I'd want to hear it more. And I think that's what's so interesting about these stories is that I've experienced it. I know other people who have experienced it. You've clearly experienced something like this. So why don't they continue to communicate? I think that's where my frustration comes in, is because I'm so fascinated by it. Why is it that it's only momentary? It's not consistent, And the problem that I have is that even though I take a firm stance where I am and in my belief on it, there's a lot of people who will take a biased belief in science or even religion, if you go that far, to say, well, it didn't really happen. You were too tired and you heard something and, whatever, you can't prove anything. And that's the science people. And then the religious people are like, oh, it's a demon or it's something, everybody has this, their opinion that they want to just like blanketly throw out to this. And we don't understand what these things are. And these sightings that happen to us, that's why it's paranormal, it's like this out of this realm of this everyday thing that's happening to us. Mm-hmm. And I can't understand why it happens momentarily. It just happens in just a small instance of things. So here's what we're going to do, because people who are watching this, as it's, being recorded right now, the tapping that you're going to hear, in this video is awesome, man. You did a good job at just picking up your camera and just filming this.
Thank you.
So kind of walk us through it. I'm going to show it, but walk us through it just real quick right now. What happened on this night when you heard the tapping?
Yeah. I tried recording it before, but every time my phone light was all the way on, because I was trying to record on Snapchat, how it has all the extra stuff that just brightens up your screen.
Yeah.
The tapping would always stop, so I gave up. But then someone messaged me on Reddit and said, hey, people probably aren't going to believe you if you don't record it. I can help you embed it in your post. I can help you make it a YouTube. And so I took the guy's offer. Mm-hmm. I did it the way he told me to do it, and I got that video that you have now of the tapping in my room.
Nice.
And probably the strangest thing about it is whenever I had any form of light on in my room, it completely stopped.
Really?
Like if I was like on TikTok or something and my brightness was illuminating that area, there was nothing. But the moment it was on a dark video or I just turned my phone off and tried going back to bed, it started right back up again.
No kidding.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting.
That is interesting.
And even it got to the point where like it started like I heard like scratching at the end of the desk.
So, okay, now here's what a lot of people will instantly turn to and think of is that it was let's say a mouse or something that was, afraid of, the light from your phone because all of a sudden, they're nocturnal essentially. They come out at night. We've had mice in our walls before, I've had that. And so I know what that sounds like with the scratching and everything, but I can tell you right now, nothing taps rhythmically that's a mouse. So unless it's Stuart Little or like the Ratatouille, I'm just saying nothing is going to do that. That's like something you see in movies, right? Kids movies. So this thing tapping rhythmically along with your taps and then you communicating with it and saying, do you understand? Tap 1 for no, tap 2 for yes, and it taps 2. That's pretty significant. Mm-hmm. That's really significant to me. That's telling me, and it should tell the audience as well too, that it's not something that is an animal. Why would an animal do it? You would just hear the scratching of an animal. That's all you hear. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and play this for everybody really quick here. Okay, so what you guys are about to see and hear is the video that Dylan has posted on YouTube. And we're just going to play this, and you guys can just watch it, and then we'll talk afterwards here.
Come on, do something fancy. Alright, it stopped. Like, let me turn my There's literally no one in here. There's nothing in my room, bro. There's no one. Now, this shit has been doing it on itself all night. Like, I've been holding up my phone and you could see my hands. Like, this is not faked, my boy.
Okay, so there, you just saw it. You just heard it. That was rhythmic tapping. I could hear it. I know it's faint. It kind of sounds like you're taking, I don't know, like you said, a nail or like a paper clip or something, and just like it's lightly tapping against something. Was it tapping against the, is it the wall? Is that what it was tapping against, where the sound was coming from?
I have, I can't turn on my camera. I have a wooden desk right next to my bed where my head is.
I saw that in the video.
And it was where my lamp was. The tapping was coming from right next to the lamp on kind of an open space with my stuff.
Okay.
It was like directly on the wood, and I tested it to see if it's actually on the wood. I put a finger on the edge. It's not, and I could feel the vibration coming off of it.
Oh, off the desk or off that nightstand thing. Yeah. Okay. So right off the wood, you could feel the vibration of the tapping essentially. So it was coming from that.
Yes.
Yeah. It really seemed to me as though it was, when you said, come on, do something fancy, and you were doing that rhythmic tapping, it was almost like it was just, at one point it sounded like it was trying to do the end of the rhythm that you were doing. Does that make sense? Like you were in a rhythm. It's like dun 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 dun, dun, and it's like dun dun. Like it was finishing that up for you in a way. If that makes sense.
Last one where it went da da da. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I mean, so you said since the age of 10, you've been kind of open to this kind of stuff. Have you had any other experiences other than just this recent activity?
Yes. After my parents divorced when I was 10, my mom moved into an apartment, and my brother was really kicking up on like ghost investigating stuff at that point, because we always grew up watching Ghost Adventures and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And my mom raised us on horror movies, and it's just something that we were open to from the beginning. And when we moved in there, every single time I went in that house, I felt extremely uncomfortable, and I was like always looking over my shoulder. And it picked up to the point where I'd wake up every night with like bruises all over my body, and I would like stay up the entire night because I was too scared to sleep, because I'd have like nightmares.
Really?
Like really grisly nightmares.
Yeah.
Like the one that I remember the most clearly was I was in the house and I walked. There was like, I ended up in the crawl space somehow because it was up north and I was up in the attic. And there was a woman in white just ripping the heads off of children.
No way.
And I was standing in like the corner, and she like slowly looked at me, and just blood coming out of her eyes, and and in my dream I bolted, and that's when I woke up.
Oh, man, that's crazy, because the woman in white is such a common thing for people to experience. Even
like, I remember this was when I was 12, and I was getting dressed, and I had my door wide open, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw like a bridal gown shift across into my brother's room, which was the room next to me.
Really?
And I freaked out. I jerked my head. I went out to look, and I checked my brother's room. There was just nothing in there. And then I went and got my mom. And even like my dad's house, after about a half a year of living there, it started to spread to my dad's house. Like we'll be downstairs and we'll be watching TV, and then we'll start hearing loud bangs upstairs from me and my brother's rooms. And my brother, he had like deer mounts.
Okay.
Because my brother and my dad were avid hunters.
Okay.
So he had mounts above his bed, and he'd put like hats and glasses on them. Yeah. And one day it was just me and him home alone, and we were watching movies and playing video games, just doing average stuff.
Right.
And we heard a loud bang upstairs, and we run up there, and the mounts fell down straight up, and the hats were flipped from one mount to the other mount.
No way.
It was so creepy. And then my brother started he bought the I don't know what they're called, like EVPs and ghost boxes, like that stuff where you can record it back and hear them.
Yeah.
And while he was doing that at my mom's house, he'd hear like almost every single night he'd hear it. He'd hear like demon run dangerous almost every time he did it.
Really?
It was really freaky. Huh. And then towards the end of that whole manifestation thing, we got black mold in that house and we were forced to move out.
Really?
The house had no problems with it before. It just sprouted up. Even the homeowners were confused.
So do you think that whatever that was at your mom's house followed you to your dad's house?
Most definitely.
Yeah. So you think that was the same entity?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was something that was just kind of connected to you then, in a way. Have you had anybody in your family that's passed recently, even before maybe you were 10?
When I was 8, both my grandma and my uncle died, who I was really close with.
Okay.
They my uncle died from skin cancer because he was in Vietnam, so he was dealing with Agent Orange a lot. And then my grandma was a smoker and she had diabetes. She had heart problems. So we don't know what she ultimately died from. But yeah.
Okay. Have you ever had a feeling that it could be one of them? Could be somebody in your family at all that's trying to communicate with you?
No, not at all.
You think it's something else?
Yeah, my mom had that feeling. But at the point, because I was the one that it was mostly drawn to, I thought I knew them personally. They were really nice people, still some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. It was too aggressive to be them.
Okay. That makes sense. And a lot of times, people will, if you have that intuition on whatever you're experiencing, you got to go with your intuition. So when people experience a paranormal event like this and they say, you know what, I have a feeling it's my deceased relative, and just name a relative, right? And it's like, I was so close to them and I had this experience and it was a great experience. That's the intuition coming out because they feel it. It's the same energy. So that energy from that consciousness of their dad, their mom, their uncle, their grandma, whatever it is coming through in a positive way. And so they feel it. So you have to go on that gut response. And so your intuition is saying, no, this is not them. This is something else that has attached itself essentially to you. Do you think that this tapping, though, comes from the same entity, or do you think this is something different?
I started, because I have a history about every few years, like when I was 13 and 14, before I moved down to North Carolina from Wisconsin, my brother let me jump in on his ghost investigating stuff before he left for the Marines. And whenever we went to a place, instead of payment or whatever, or just any form of satisfaction from the owners, I'd ask for an object that I thought was cool. Bad mistake. Because I picked up, the Scarface movie?
Yeah.
I picked up one of the, I loved old movies like Blade Runner, Scarface, Mad Max, that stuff, the old popular movies.
Yeah.
I found one of the old limited posters that they put in front of movie theaters for the Al Pacino Scarface movie. And I picked that up. And the moment I picked that up and brought it in my room, that specific object, I'd wake up at exactly 4:45 almost every morning to whispers and scratching in the hallway outside my door. Really? Yeah. And I couldn't go in the basement. I just refused to go in the basement. Whenever I did laundry, I'd always kind of it was in the corner, and I'd put my back against the wall so I could see everything and do my laundry. It was, and then when we moved down to North Carolina, after I started to quite basically become obsessed with that object, I refused to let it out of my sight. I cleaned it religiously. My mom was like, "Hey Dylan, you have to burn this, bring it to the dump, throw it away, have them deal with it." So I listened. The moment I got rid of it, it was like a weight off my shoulder. The whispers stopped, everything. which was really interesting. Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting, though, that you had that kind of connection to that. But what do you think going forward with this thing? Are you going to continue to kind of pursue, tapping with this thing and see where it goes?
Yes. I called my brother and I showed him the video and I was like talking to him about it. Mm-hmm. And he told me that it's a very fascinating and uncommon experience. Mm-hmm. And he told me to start a notebook, start logging everything that happens. So just in case it goes malicious, I think that's the word, I can understand the timeline to where it started.
Okay.
He told me record as much as I can, try keep an eye out around the house to see if things are in different places. Because my dad's never home and I don't really touch things.
Okay.
And so I've just been recording everything. Every night since then, I've been like periodically tapping on my desk to see if it will come back. Mm-hmm. I've been like looking around the house to see if I can find anything. And I only came up with 2 actual instances so far. The first one being not the morning after, but the morning after, the day after the tapping. Mm-hmm. I was taking a shower, getting ready for school, and as I was leaving the bathroom, I heard a very loud bang above the doorway, and it made me jump. I ran back to my room. I got dressed and just went back on with my day. Mm-hmm. And then yesterday, I came home, and I smelled something that did not go well with my nose. Mm-hmm. And I thought one of the dogs got into the trash and spread it around the house. I thought maybe a rodent died. Mm-hmm. Or I thought one of them like just shit in a corner somewhere and it was sitting all day.
Right.
And so while I was searching the house, I flip on the light to my dad's room. And I just got back from musical, so it was like pitch black. Mm-hmm. I flip on the light to my dad's room. And there was a tiny handprint in the dust on his dresser. And I was looking at it. I have very small hands. Like they're smaller than most of my female friends.
Okay.
So, and my dad's hands are huge. So I was looking at it, I was like, there's no way this is my dad's hand. So I put my hand up to it and it's even smaller than mine. And it was a full press. Like you can see the palm print. You can see where the little crease from where your palm indents. You could see all the fingers going out.
Yeah.
It was really crazy. So I texted my dad. I was like, hey, Dad, you by any chance just rest your hand on your dresser? And he said he doesn't remember, but I'm not going to get too far into that one because it could have been him, and palm prints are weird when it comes to dust and all that.
Sure. Okay, so let me ask you this. There's a couple of things that I want to bring up. And I got to say this too. I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing the story because, this is really important to share this with other people. I know a lot of people out there are going to appreciate you, releasing, especially the video and everything and really talking about your experiences. But I know there's people probably out there screaming right now saying like, what about the dog? Does the dog see anything? What about the dad? Has the dad ever seen anything?
The dog does see things.
Really?
On the night of the tapping, when it really picked up, mm-hmm. like it got to the point where it was almost constant. It sounded like there were just 2 fingers banging after, like like stuff like that. You play music. It was like 16s and 32s. It was really back to back and just quick.
Really?
My pit bull, she was under the blankets in between my legs snoring. She was out cold. Mm-hmm. But the Doberman, he was outside my door like snarling and trying to scratch at it to get in.
Really?
He'd like start whining, and then once the tapping packed back up, I'd hear growling outside my door. Which was kind of that honestly, my Doberman reacting like that, because I've only heard him growl twice in my entire life. We had him for 2 years now, not counting that moment. That was kind of my cue that this may not be something friendly. It may not be something that I should try to be nice with. well, obviously I should try to be nice with it, but it may not be something that I should be completely down on my guard with.
Sure. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And especially after that, after I heard the growling, I became more cautious with it. And the handprint on my dresser, the reason earlier I said I hope it's not a child entity is because a lot of malicious spirits take the form of children.
Yeah.
So if it ends up being a child entity, then I'm going to treat that way more as a problem than I'm going to treat it as a cute little kid.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. No, I get where you're going with that, because especially if you've ever heard the cases of like skinwalkers and how skinwalkers will act as children. They'll act as children or females in order to lure in their prey, essentially, right? Yeah, I think that's a good idea on your part, is to kind of just be very cautious with it. Take it. Yeah, you can still communicate with it. Just don't let your guard down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, keep me informed on this, man, because this is really fascinating. I want to thank you for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. You know, we talk about a lot of crazy stuff here. So if you want to hear more, just like and subscribe to the channel. It'd really help us out a lot. And plus, if you have a crazy story, whether it be an alien abduction, near-death experience, or something of the paranormal, or a glitch in the matrix, please let us know. Share it in the comments. We'd love to have you on the show.